When it comes to crafting the most broken builds in Elden Ring, you already know this channel is your safe place. Anyway, sometimes we just want to try a sick build, a fun weapon with a stylish moveset and flashy abilities. Elden Ring's combat system is so polished that it lets you enjoy the craziest weapons, skills and spells you can imagine. In this video, I'll show you 10 extremely badass builds that feel like they were ripped straight out of an anime battle. These characters are so insane you'll swear you are playing a completely different game. As a side note, I created these builds prioritizing flashiness, but I still optimized every single one to hit like a truck. We all like it big, that's a fact. So we are starting this list with the Ancient Meteoric or Greatsword, a colossal sword introduced in Shadow of the Erdtree that features one of the most unique abilities of this game. White Light Charge is a swift piercing attack that closes gaps with the target and creates a huge AoE explosion of cosmic power. This skill deals a decent damage but is insanely fun to play. It makes you feel you are playing with a faster paced build. In addition, this weapon can be easily obtained as soon as you start playing the DLC. With this build, we are going to use the Ancient Meteoric or Greatsword on +10, any skill we have available to cast our main buffs, and we need any weapon with the Raptor Optimist Ash of War to easily dodge any difficult attack. We are going to use these two items with every build, but I will not mention it every time to avoid being repetitive. I'm going to be rocking the Theoler's armor set merely for aesthetical reasons with the Circlet of Light, but if you want to deal the max damage possible, you can use the Rakshasa's armor set. This is the best armor set you can use with any build if your main purpose is to get the max damage possible. The best talismans we can use for this build are the Shard of Alexander, the Magic Scorpion Charm, the Two-Handed Sword Talisman and the Spear Talisman. In our Flask of Wondrous Physic, we are going to use the Blood-Sucking Crack Tier and the Magic Shrouding Crack Tier. But you can also use the Stonebarb Crack Tier, that way we will increase our stance damage significantly. This weapon devours stamina, so be sure to craft some pickled turtlenecks to boost your stamina regeneration speed. So I recommend you to use it with any build, but if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. To get the most out of our weapon and to have an optimal build, we are going to use 50 on Vigor, 20 on Mind, 35 on Endurance, 62 on Strength, 10 on Dexterity, 33 on Faith, and 63 on Arcane. Golden Vow and Hall of Shabriri are going to be our main buffs. As you can see, I have my Scatter-Tree Blessing on the level 20. If you want to deal the max damage possible in the DLC, be sure to have it on the level 20 as well. We are going to be using the Scatter-Tree Blessing on the level 20 with every build, otherwise your damage is gonna be incredibly low. Now I'll show you the buff routine that we will use for every single build of this video. First we have to use our Flask of Wondrous Physic, then we are going to cast Golden Vow, which is our aura buff. Now we are going to use a pickled turtleneck, which is indeed completely optional, and we are going to use our body buff. In this case, as we are dealing physical and magic damage, is gonna be Hall of Shabriri. Depending on the builds, your buffs might change, but I will explain it if that's necessary. Now refill your FP and your HP, and with that you should be ready to go. I love those lines in old movies where the main character says that their hands and feet are lethal weapons. Well, it seems like our friends from Software took it a little bit too serious. The hand-to-hand arts are extremely fun and unique weapons despite not being insanely broken. They provide a completely different gameplay style where our character moves and fight like it was a Dragon Ball mod. The best part is that both weapons of this class are infusible, increasing the versatility of the build. In this case, I will be using the Dane's Footwork on +25 with the Dryleaf Whirlwind Ash of War on the Blood Affinity and the Dryleaf Arts on +25 with the Palm Blast Ash of War on the Blood Affinity as well. I'm gonna be using the Ronin's Armor with the Wide Reed Gauntlets and Greaves and the Dane's Hat. Once again, merely for aesthetical reasons. If you want more damage, Rakshasa's armor set. If you want more defense, any other armor set you prefer. The most effective talismans we can use for this build are the Lord of Blood's Exultation, the Shard of Alexander, the Millicent's Prosthesis, and the Roaring Windsor Insignia. When facing enemies that are immune to bleed, the Shatterstone Talisman is a great alternative for this build. In our Flask of Wondrous Physic, we will get the best results with the Blood-Sucking Crack Tier and the Thorny Crack Tier. With this build, we are dealing only physical damage, that's why our best body buff is going to be Blood Boil Aromatic. But if you don't like crafting, feel free to use Flame Grant Me Strength. Don't forget to craft some pickled turtlenecks to boost your stamina regeneration speed. The most optimal stats for this build are 50 on Vigor, 21 on Mind, 35 on Endurance, 48 on Strength and Dexterity, 25 on Faith, and 45 on Arcane. Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength are going to be our main buffs. Once again, remember to have your Scatter-Tree Blessing on the level 20. This is the last time I mention it. In this case, the buff routine will be the same, but as we are dealing only physical damage, instead of using Hall of Shabriri, we are going to use Blood Boil Aromatic. With that, we should be ready to go. The first thing coming to my mind when I hear the word insane is lightning, the coolest elemental damage of the game. There are two main main sources of lightning damage in Elden Ring, the skills and the incantations. What's the problem here? That lightning abilities scale with dexterity. Why? I have no idea. On the other hand, lightning incantations scale with faith. So in order to play with a full lightning build, we have to create a weird combo of dexterity and faith. Fortunately, splitting the stats this way can result in a very powerful character capable of showcasing delightful attacks and decent damage. Now we will use the Dead Knight's twin axes on +10, 2 Gravelstone seals on +25, but only one of them needs to be upgraded cause the second one is only to stack its passive effect. I'm going to be using the entire Dead Knight's armor set cause it looks amazing with this build and it will increase the power of our skill and our incantations by a total of 10%. The best talismans are the Shard of Alexander, the Lightning Scorpion Charm, the Roaring Windsor Insignia and the Flux Canvas Talisman. If you don't want to use incantations, you can use the All Lord's Talisman cause it will increase the duration of your buffs. In our Flask of Wondrous Physic, we are going to use the Blood Sucking Crack tier and the Lightning Shrouding Crack tier. This build consumes a lot of stamina, so be sure to craft some pickled turtlenecks to boost your stamina regeneration speed. To get the most out of this build, we are going to use 50 on Vigor, 25 on Mind, 35 on Endurance, 44 on Strength, 60 on Dexterity, and 47 on Faith. Golden Vow and Hall of Shabriri are going to be our main buffs. If you want, you can use the Blessing of the Erdtree to counter the HP drain effect of the Blood Sucking Crack tier. And my favorite incantations to use with this setup are the Knight's Lightning Spear, Ancient Dragon's Lightning Strike, and Fortisac's Lightning Spear. If you like the Sword of Night and Flame, you are going to love the Relana's Twin Blades. The unique skill of this weapon works exactly in the same way than the Sword of Night and Flame. The light input of the skill is for the Magic Waves combo, while the heavy input is for the Firestorm AoE attack. These dual light greatswords are incredibly amazing when it comes to play aggressively and without losing elegance. In addition, thanks to the requirements of this weapon, we will be prepared to use a wide variety of sorceries and incantations. With this one, we are going to use the Relana's Twin Blades on +10 with the Staff of the Great Beyond on +10 as well. I will be rocking the Relana's armor set with the Commoner's Headband on its altered version merely for aesthetical reasons. Remember that if you want more damage, you can use the Rakshasa's armor set. The most effective talismans for this build are the Shard of Alexander, the Relana's Cameo, the All Lord's Talisman, and the Magic Scorpion Charm or the Fire Scorpion Charm, depending of the type of damage you want to deal. If you want, you can use both the Scorpion Charms at the same time, but I really don't find this action quite useful. In our Flask of Wondrous Physic, we are going to use the Blood Sucking Crack tier and the Magic Shrouding Crack tier. If you are going to use the Fire attack, then you are going to replace the Magic Shrouding Crack tier for the Flame Shrouding Crack tier. To get the max performance of our weapons and our spells, we are going to use 50 on Vigor, 21 on Mind, 35 on Endurance, 13 on Strength, 19 on Dexterity, 72 on Intelligence, and 60 on Faith. Golden Vow, Hall of Shabriri, and Terra Magica are going to be our main buffs. My favorite spells to use with this one are the Relana's Twin Moons and Catch Flame. In this case, the buff routine will be the same, but as we are dealing magic damage, we can use Terra Magica, and the cool part of this build is that we don't need to use any seal cause this staff allows you to cast spells and incantations at the same time. Once you touch this weapon, it is impossible not to become addicted to its wonderful moveset and extraordinary unique skill. Technically, this is an infusible weapon which can be used with multiple Ashes of War and affinities. However, it will be really awful if you don't use this weapon with the fantastic Wingstance Ash of War. This ability was designed to be used exclusively with the Milady, thus I like to call it its unique skill. But to me, the best part is that we can apply it with multiple affinities, making of this weapon a really stylish destruction machine. In this case, we are going to be using the Milady on +25 with the Wingstance Ash of War on the Flame Mart or Sacred Affinity, depending of the enemies we are going to face. And we are going to use 2 Giant Seals, one of them upgraded to +25, and we will use the other one only to stack its passive effect. I am using the Gold Mask's Racks, the Queen's Bracelets, the Old Sorcerer's Leg Wraps, and the Commoner's Headband on its altered version. Just be aware that your defense with this combo is gonna be very low. The best talismans we can use for this build are the Shard of Alexander, the Relana's Cameo, the Fire Scorpion Charm if you are dealing fire damage, or the Sacred Scorpion Charm if you are going for holy damage. In both cases, the All Lord's Talisman is your best option to increase the duration of your buffs. In our Flask of Wondrous Physic, we will use the Blood Sucking Crack tier to get the max damage possible, and very similar to our previous build, we are going to use the Flame Shrouding Crack tier when dealing fire damage and the Holy Shrouding Crack tier when dealing holy damage. Even if you don't believe it, against some enemies of the DLC, the holy damage is very useful. And this weapon devours stamina, so be sure to craft some pickled turtlenecks to boost your stamina regeneration speed. If you want to increase your next fire damage instance by 75% or by 50%, you can use the Hefty Oil Pot or the Oil Pot respectively. The most optimal stats for this one are 50 on Vigor, 21 on Mind, 40 on Endurance, 12 on Strength, 40 on Dexterity, and 99 on Faith. Golden Vow and Hall of ability are going to be our main buffs. If you want, you can use Blessing of the Erdtree to counter the HP drain effect of the blood-sucking crack tier. And my favorite incantations for this one are Giant's Flame Take D and Burn of Flame. In this case, the buff routine will be exactly the same, but if you want to deal the max fire damage possible when using fire damage, be sure to hit your target with a hefty oil pot before attacking with your weapon. With that, you should be ready to go. I really like the concept behind this build's main weapon. Obsidian is one of the sharpest materials known to men. The word lamina refers to a very thin layer of something. Now imagine that same razor-thin sharpness forged into a scythe. A weapon named Obsidian Lamina couldn't be any scarier, especially now that it's been buffed in the latest Elden Ring patch. The damage and stance damage of its unique skill Dynastic Sickle Play have been dramatically increased, turning it into a truly dark weapon worthy of being wielded by the Grim Reaper itself. With this one, we are going to use the Obsidian Lamina on +10 and any weapon with the Seppuku Ash of War. We are going to use this one for the buff routine, but it's not necessary. I'm gonna be rocking the entire Ansbach set because I love how it looks with this weapon. Besides of this is the canon weapon of this guy, and it increases the power of Dynastic Sickle Play by a total of 15%, so it's a great armor set to use paired with this weapon. The most effective talismans for this one are the Shard of Alexander, the Lord of Blood's Exaltation, the Millicent's Prosthesis, and the Roaring Windsor Insignia. In our Flask of Wondrous Physic, we will get the best results with the Blood-Sucking Crack tier and the Thorny Crack tier. Once again, with this one we are dealing only physical damage, that's why our best body buff is going to be Blood Boil Aromatic, but if you don't like crafting, feel free to use Flame Grant Me Strength. To get the most out of this weapon and to have an optimal build, we are going to use 50 on Vigor, 20 on Mind, 40 on Endurance, 12 on Strength, 80 on Dexterity, 25 on Faith, and 45 on Arcane. Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength are going to be our main buffs. If you want to proc bleed faster, you can use the Swarm of Flies. With the high level of Arcane we have, it's gonna be an extremely helpful incantation. The buff routine will be the same, but if you want to start the fights with the bleed buffs active, we are going to use the Seppuku Ash of War before entering the arena. This step is completely optional because eventually you will proc bleed on your target just by using your main weapon. When looking for the main weapon of a build, I always think about the damage it can display once optimized, but with the Falx my first thought was, what do I need to do to make this weapon shine? Because I promise I have never seen a more savage unique ability than Revenger's Blade. A ferocious charge attack with both blades crossed, followed by a storm of outrageous slashes like a mad butcher on a rampage. And if that was not enough, it deals a ridiculous amount of damage with an incredibly simple setup. Now we are going to use the Falx on +10, and once again we are going to use any weapon with Seppuku to start the fights with the bleed buffs active. In this case I'm actually gonna be using the Rakshasa's armor set because I feel like with this build specifically it looks very amazing, and as you already know it increases our damage by a total of 8%. The best talismans for this build are the Shard of Alexander, the Lord of Blood's Exaltation, the Millicent's Prosthesis, and the Roaring Windsor Insignia. In our Flask of Wondrous Physic we are going to use the Blood-Sucking Crack tier and the Thorny Crack tier. We are dealing only physical damage, which means that our best body buff is gonna be Blood Boil Aromatic. Remember that you can use Flame Grant Me Strength if you don't like crafting. And don't forget to craft some pickled turtlenecks cause this one devours stamina. To get the most out of our weapon we are going to use 50 on Vigor, 18 on Mind, 40 on Endurance, 30 on Strength, 99 on Dexterity, and 25 on Faith. Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength are going to be our main buffs. And once again, as with the previous build, you can use Seppuku to start the fights with the bleed buffs active. Holy Damage is indeed an amazing elemental damage type. It can be really powerful if it's used with the right build. The Euphoria is a great example of the true potential this damage type has to offer. This powerful Twin Blade has a unique buffing system which highly rewards a very aggressive gameplay style, boosting its performance quickly. With only 2 fully charged R2 attacks you will reach the maximum power stage of this weapon, unlocking multiple features. Using its unique skill Euphoria Vortex under this effect will create an endless laser beam of holy damage that can delete the strongest bosses of the game in seconds. With this one we are going to use the Euphoria on +10 with 2 pieces of the Oathseeker Knight armor set, the chest piece of the Leda's armor, and the Circlet of Light. You know that is only for aesthetical reasons. The most effective talismans for this build are the Shard of Alexander, the Sacred Scorpion Charm, the Roaring Windsor Insignia, and the All Lord's Talisman. In our Flask of Wondrous Physic we are going to rock the Blood-Sucking Crack tier and the Holy Shrouding Crack tier. In order to obtain the max performance of this weapon and to have an optimal build, we are going to use 60 on Vigor, 23 on Mind, 40 on Endurance, 20 on Strength and Dexterity, and 99 on Faith. Golden Vow and Hall of Shabriri are going to be our main buffs. If you want, you can use the Blessing of the Erdtree to counter the HP drain effect of the Blood-Sucking Crack tier. And feel free to use any incantations you want, you have 99 on Faith. My favorite part of playing any From Software game is when you get the weapon of the boss you just defeated and it actually feels like a boss weapon. The Spear of the Impaler is a majestic piece of art from its cool design to its most unique and powerful feature. This weapon is not easy to use, in fact most players will require a few hours of practice before of completely understanding its properties. Nonetheless, once this spear is dominated, it's almost impossible to believe how similar it is to the boss version, especially when using its unique skill Mesmer's Assault. It looks awesome and deals a lot of damage. The thing is that we don't have enough hyper armor when performing such long and risky ability. Now we are going to use the Spear of the Impaler on +10 with the Mesmer's armor set and the Winged Serpent Helm. The best talismans are the Shard of Alexander, the Fire Scorpion Charm, the Millicent's Prosthesis, and the All Lord's Talisman. In our Flask of Wondrous Physique, we are going to use the Blood-Sucking Crack tier and the Flame Shrouding Crack tier. This build is not gonna work unless you use 50 on Vigor, 20 on Mind, 38 on Endurance, 14 on Strength, 80 on Dexterity, and 60 on Faith. Golden Vow and Hall of Shabriri are going to be our main buffs. If you want, you can use the Blessing of the Erdtree to counter the HP drain effect of the Blood-Sucking Crack tier. And I am using all the Mesmer's incantations, but it is not necessary, it's just if you want. In my opinion, the best one is the Mesmer's Orb. I don't know if you guys will agree with my winner choice, but when it comes to peak flashiness, the Eleonora's Pole Blade is the first and only weapon I can think about. This unique twin blade has multiple features that made me love it since the first time I tried it. It deals physical and fire damage while building up bleed passively. It has a unique R2 attack moveset, and its unique skill Bloodblade Dance is just perfect. This ability is an aggressive multi-hit flurry attack that can be followed up with a lethal evasive maneuver, dealing a lot of stance damage and instantly proccing bleed. It's my favorite weapon of the entire game, and the best part is that you can use it along with the Rivers of Blood. This is definitely the most stylish and destructive character I have ever created, the ultimate Shura build. And with this final fantastic build, we are using the Eleonora's Pole Blade on +10, the Rivers of Blood on +10, a weapon with seppuku if we want to start the fights with the bleed buffs active, which is optional indeed, and we are going to be rocking the White Reed armor set with the Iron Casa. You know that this is only for aesthetical reasons, but the stats are decent, and this way your character is gonna look incredibly amazing. The best talismans are the Shard of Alexander, the Lord of Blood's Exultation, the Millicent's Prosthesis, and the Rodden Windsor Insignia. In our Flask of Wondrous Physique, we are going to use the Blood-Sucking Crack tier and the Thorny Crack tier. In this case, I recommend you to use the Pickled Turtlenecks cause this build devours stamina. The Rivers of Blood consumes even more stamina than the Eleonora's Pole Blade, which I don't know why, but be sure to use it to boost your stamina regeneration speed. And to obtain the max performance of this fantastic build, we are going to use 50 on Vigor, 20 on Mind, 40 on Endurance, 12 on Strength, 60 on Dexterity, 33 on Faith, and 65 on Arcane. Golden Vow, Hall of Shabriri, and Flame Grant Me Strength are going to be our main buffs. You can use Flame Grant Me Strength instead of Hall of Shabriri, because that way you will not take extra damage, but in my opinion, Hall of Shabriri is way better. And if you want to proc bleed faster, you can use the Swarm of Flies. Remember to have your Scatter Blessing to the level 20 if you want to deal the max damage possible in the DLC.